All right, let's get going.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started then. I'm Megan Vukasic with the Planning and Zoning Department, and for the work session tonight, we're going to focus on a neighborhood meeting that we had last month. It was a really successful meeting, and so it was the first time we had held something like this, and so I wanted to give you guys all an update on how it went and the results of that meeting. So the area that we were focusing on is the southeast corner of Cynthia Ann and 136th Street. Specifically, we were looking at this parcel here. And the reason that we held this neighborhood meeting is, if you recall, it was actually at a council meeting. We heard some remonstration coming from a development, and so it was really requested by you all that staff hold this neighborhood meeting with the residents out here to see what they would like to see. And so with that, our team created these hypothetical scenarios of what different development could potentially look like out here. Again, we were pretty clear with the residents that this is really just for the purposes of obtaining feedback and did not really reflect the city's desired uses. We were just trying to give them a starting point and something to react to so we could get some feedback. So the first concept was this concept A, and this really just mimics a new single-family residential subdivision. So we took the same lot sizes of those that were in Britton Falls, and we mirrored that in this neighborhood layout. The southern part of the parcel, and you'll see this throughout all of the concept plans, is reserved for open space and walking trails. So that is in a floodplain, so it is undeveloped area and will remain that way. And so we wanted to keep that green space on this plan. But I think it's important as it relates to the surrounding residents because there's a potential to have some walking trail connections to Britton Falls and Hunters Run over here. And so we thought that was good to highlight and get the community's feedback on that as well. So this first concept had about 70% residential and 30% parks and open space. The second concept that we proposed was a mix of commercial and residential. So we called this neighborhood services. This really has a mix of different housing types. So in our concept plan, we show single family, which is in yellow, townhomes, which are in orange, and then the red represents commercial. So again, we just generally laid this out just to show what that could potentially look like, and then that open space again to the south. So this was about 50% residential, 30% open space, and 20% commercial. And then the last concept plan that we showed them was a all commercial concept plan. So this would include 70% commercial, and then again, that 30% parks and open space. And this is about 325,000 square feet of commercial. So that is a significant amount of commercial area for this parcel, but it could fit there as we have laid out. So during this meeting, this was actually held as a Zoom meeting, so it was virtual. We've learned over the pandemic that it's actually more accessible to a larger number of residents, these virtual meetings, because they don't have to come out to City Hall. They can just log in from their home and participate that way. Zoom actually has some really cool features where you can get survey results real time, so it pops up, and we were able to ask them real-time questions and then show everyone the results of the results of those questions. And so I'm going to go over the questions that were asked and the results that we found. Before I get into the specifics of that, this gives you just an overview. So of the concept A, B, and C, when we asked the participants which one they felt was best suited for this area, a majority of them felt that concept C, commercial only, was the best use for this parcel. So I do want to just highlight that. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on to show you more of the specific questions that we did ask the residents. And I also want to highlight this was the most well-attended public meeting I've seen since my time at Fishers. So we had over 200 people RSVP. We had about 100 people attend the event. And then we did record it and post it online for a couple of weeks following that event, and we received over or just about 300 responses back from the community. So for public meetings, that is very well attended, I would say. In my experience, we get about 10 to 20 people that show up for a public meeting, so this was great to see and I think really speaks to our community. So the first question was really focused on that single family concept, concept A. So in your opinion, is single family best suited for this area? A majority of people said no, they did not feel that single family was a good use. Over here to the side, we asked what specific features they like about the concept A. And so you can see here open space, tree conservation, walking trails. Those are the ones that people liked seeing. Down here, we asked which ones they disliked, and a majority of those did not like the single-family homes. So that one stood up above the rest. For the second option, the mix of residential and commercial uses, still a majority said no, but a little bit more said yes. If we look at the features they like about Concept B, similar to the first question, they like open space, tree conservation, walking trails, that remained the same, so wasn't surprised by that. And then we added these two additional categories, commercial retail and then commercial medical or office. So those are really neighborhood retail or neighborhood commercial focused uses, and so we wanted to break those up to see if there was a preference in the community, and more of them said commercial retail was a preference. And which features they disliked about Concept B, single family homes and townhomes were the two that most people selected as not liking about that concept, which aligns with what we saw in the previous one as well. And then finally, in your opinion, is commercial development a suitable use for this area? A majority said yes. They felt like it was the best option. Again, open space, tree conservation, walking trails, those were scored highly among the features they liked, in addition to the commercial retail. And then we added this no residential just to, if that's what they liked about the concept, and that one scored highly as well. And then moving on to the features they disliked, this was the only one where we saw none as the highest submission there. And then again, in your opinion, which concept is best suited for this area? A majority said Concept C, commercial only. So what does this mean for you all? Is really when we're thinking about the Fishers 2040 plan in this area, this is how it's designated today. So it's identified as a neighborhood service center. And so this is really to provide neighborhood retail and commercial uses to support the surrounding areas. So unlike maybe what we see at the Fishers District, which is more of a regional commercial draw, this would be a more neighborhood commercial focused development. And so that's what we had identified in the Fishers 2040 plan. That seems to align with the feedback that we got from residents. And it also aligns with the zoning that is allowed today. So we'll go over a little bit of that in our presentation again tonight as we focus on development in this area, but did just want to give that overview for you all, and then I'm here to answer any questions that you have as well.
Megan, could you go to your first slide?
This one?
Yeah, and then the next one. Okay, that'll work. Is everything south of Smoke Creek and floodway?
There are probably portions of that parcel that are not in the floodway because it just follows the creek, but I'm not sure how much area.
So there's basically nothing that could be built there.
Correct.
So we could make a park and put some more pickleball courts in.
I don't know if you,
Yes, it could be preserved as open space.
Megan, did they give you any ideas on what type of neighborhood retail they'd like to see? Is it restaurant concept?
Grocery stores, all I hear.
Right, market, mini market. I mean, I would like to further kind of develop that to understand kind of the needs, the retail needs and desires.
Yeah, so we had in our survey, we asked for any additional comments, and so a lot of people put in their specific uses that they would like to see. The two that stood out, grocery stores, yes, I would say by far that is the number one use that people would like to see, but then also fitness centers or workout facilities, I would say was the second most popular. But I can compile that information so that way we can see more of those results.
I think one thing to note that stood out to me in their exercise, we're only talking about one corner of the four corners of this intersection. And just in the layout of the one corner, they could fit 325,000 square feet of commercial office space, or commercial space, I should say. That's an enormous amount of commercial space. That's just one corner of the four corners here. So as we think about the need for commercial space out here, 325,000 square feet is a lot. And multiply that by four corners, if you're talking about 1.2 million in square footage of commercial, that's more than,
That's the equivalent of 116th and Oleo.
yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely, and then some.
All of that would fit.
Yeah, yeah, so we just have to as we think about the longer range plan of this intersection, you know, this desire for commercial, which I appreciate, it is not likely you're going to build 1.5, 1.6 million square feet of commercial in this corridor. And so just be thinking about that. Don't just think about this one corner, think about all four corners and then the land around it. That'd be a lot of commercial space.
So the issue that I see, Scott, with what their desires are and wanting the commercial space is the corridor is not even close to ready to handle that much commercial. I think it'd probably handle a grocery store, but
Yeah.
I think that's probably it. I mean, because what is the timing on that 136th Street improvement? Because I know you guys are looking at it.
Yeah, it'll be the next couple of years, you'll see 136th Street widen. But even then, so if you look at that, this is a great picture Megan pulls up. The pink area on the east side is all we're talking about.
Right,
That's 325,000 square feet.
right.
The rest of this area, if you start to draw circles out, you just exponentially increase the amount of commercial space to a point where, you know, you get into 1 million square feet in today's world. I don't know.
Well, I understand
Who's building
Walmart's
that?
looking for space now, so.
Yeah, I mean, you could get a distribution center that could
Kidding.
build 1 million square feet, but the type of neighborhood retail that we're talking about isn't going to fill 400,000 square feet.
So from the other side of that too, if we go back to that housing study which was done, did we ask the question of this group, Megan, you know, about senior housing and or assisted living or anything like that? Has that been contemplated? Because that was certainly an area that we needed to look at. So, you know, maybe that would have been a question to ask if you didn't ask it. You know, I don't know if that was included there or not.
We didn't get into specifics on residential uses because we were just trying to keep it high level. But yes, certainly senior housing is a need. I would say, depending on the type of senior housing, right, whether it's for rent or for sale, a lot of different aspects will dictate where we think it's best suited as well.
And then again, I think from the grocery store question, which I'm not disagreeing, I think that somewhere out in that area needs to be one, but they all go on rooftops, isn't that right, Scott? I mean,
They're
really
pretty
looking-
sophisticated in their
Right.
decision on where they locate and how they locate.
I mean, I know we built a lot more out there. I just don't know if it's hit that mark yet for them.
Yeah, I think there is activity right now by grocers that are sniffing around the general area. I don't know that they've landed here per se. This may be too far east yet, I don't know, but I know there is activity in the market, especially now with Hy-Vee coming into the market. You know, Kroger's now has to decide whether they're gonna expand or not, and Hy-Vee's looking around, so there's activity. I can't speak to whether they've looked specifically here or are serious about it.
Is there any idea on how many rooftops you need?
I'm sure there are. I'm sure Kroger has a very sophisticated calculation for that. I know their Oleo Road store does exceptionally well, and they've had basically a monopoly, so they haven't really had to worry about competitors. So if you're living in Britton Falls or you live out where I do, they don't care. You're gonna go there because there's nowhere else to go. So I can't speak to that. I just know that I've heard from different commercial brokers that are out there looking around to some degree, but I think they're also trying to figure out what their industry looks like in the next decade. More and more people are doing the click list type of thing where you just pull up, grab your groceries and go. So what is the footprint of that grocery store long-term? That's changing as well. So yet to be determined, but this is obviously the next area for expansion for sure.
Couple things, Pete, on that. From my understanding, and Chris, maybe you can help me, the legislature years ago passed some stupid law that we can't build any more nursing homes. And until we get our legislators to quit letting the lobbyists control us, we can't build one out there. There is a need for a nursing home out there. Well, Britton Falls can supply it. The nursing home, the assisted living, and the memory care. We have over 90 people with Alzheimer's out just in Britton Falls. So we could supply that thing and maybe be the only supplier they need. But we can't get our legislators to back off the lobbyists.
Well, and I think Brad, you and I have always had a kind of a shared vision for this area. And I think for the exercise, it was an either or conversation to try to tease out what people really wanted. But with 325,000 square feet of commercial, you could give up 100,000 square feet of that, still put the commercial that you need and be able to provide that. It is true that there is a moratorium on skilled beds, and that you have to go get them from somewhere else in order to put them here. So that is a challenge, for sure. But I agree. I mean, our call volumes continue to go up at Britton Falls. A lot of them are falls, dementia, things of that nature.
3 per week.
Yeah,
3 EMT calls per week in Britton Falls.
yeah. And only gonna get worse.
In answer to somebody's question, what they want, I did a survey out in Britton Falls, which I supplied to Megan, so she's got that with everything that they wanted. They had no problem letting me know. So Megan has a copy of that also. I also checked, I have some friends that work for Melvin Simon Associates. They're not interested in developing any commercial in that area. The only way they would consider it is if the interchange got built. If the interchange doesn't get built, they're not interested in doing any commercial there. There is a new grocery store under construction in Hamilton Town Center, so that might relieve some pressure.
And the interchange is an important question to talk through. So, you know, it's in our 2040 plan that we would expect at some point there to be an interchange there. I don't believe NDOT has that on any of their upcoming capital programs to fund. And unless Noblesville were to come forward and put a bunch of money into building that interchange, I don't see that in the near future being constructed. I mean, it could be several years. If you remember, for us to get 106th Street done, we had to literally pay for half the interchange, or otherwise they weren't going to build it. So I don't know that I see that being a top priority for NDOT anytime in the near future.
Megan, I have a few questions. First of all, thanks to you and your staff for doing this. I didn't participate in the live virtual meeting, but I watched it afterwards, and I could tell that a lot of preparation went into this, and thank you for this opportunity. Just a couple questions. One is, can you share with us more about like the objective behind this? I was surprised that the conversation was focused on just this one particular area, and I think as a council, we've talked about this whole, you know, district and what all the space that is undeveloped and what the vision for that is. Can you share a little bit more about like, the objective about what you were trying to learn from residents and where we go from here?
Yeah, so I think that we were hearing a lot of what people didn't want, and so we were really trying to weed out what they do want at this intersection. So we focus on this specific parcel in this area because that's where the development that we kept hearing this demonstration was stemming from. And so that's why we focused on this.
So that was the spark for, to try to learn a little bit more from residents about what their desires were. Did you, to me, the results were very clear. There was some consensus here. Did you learn any insight about why? Like why the focus was, I guess, really very clearly not about housing? Do folks feel like the roads can't accommodate more homeowners, or, you know, like were you able to learn any more about the insights about the why?
Yeah, we had a plan commission meeting, and I'll talk a little bit about this later when we go over the item, but the biggest thing that we heard from residents is that they felt the existing zoning was what they wanted to see, and that was the commercial. That was the biggest why they want to see that. They just want commercial. They want amenities. They want walkable amenities close to their homes.
So maybe a little bit of both, like, hey, we don't want more homes here because there are services that we would like to have closer to us, right?
Yes, but then we also heard the standard, what we hear a lot with new development, which is density concerns, just increasing the number of residents, traffic, those things. So, it varied. I don't want to put words in any resident's mouth either. So we got all different whys, but I would say a majority of them just said they wanted to see commercial.
Last question, do you feel like this exercise was successful? I mean, in terms of learning something you didn't already know, or validating the 2040 plan that was already in place? Did you find it to be helpful?
Yes, I did. Yeah, we were able to get a lot of feedback from residents that we just typically wouldn't get.
One more question. Do you think this is something that we could do more often? Like, and as we move forward and other parcels are considered, or we are hearing remonstrance from something else. Have you discovered a good practice? Maybe not for everything, once a month or anything like that, but do you find like it's a valuable practice?
Yeah, I will say that we'll definitely use this format again to obtain feedback. Where we decide to do that and what that looks like will be determined based on what our priorities are. But yes, certainly this is another tool in our toolbox that I'm looking forward to using in the future.
I found it helpful, and I loved like the real-time polling. That was awesome. So anyway, thank you for your team
Yeah,
to
no
put
problem.
this together. And the response and the participation was fantastic, so that's helpful.
Yep.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks.
Megan, I have a question. You know, I attended the online meeting. I thought it was fantastic. You know, you did a great job. As we're going through that, I kept waiting for you to pop up an apartment complex, and you didn't, you know. Is that because you already formed an opinion about that?
No, we were really just we heard a lot of remonstration from a development that was being proposed that was multifamily, so felt like we got some good feedback on that. So we just left it more of kind of a mix of residential for that second concept plan.
Comments?
I would just talk real briefly about next steps with this, so it wasn't just food for thought. I really think long-term, and to Jocelyn's question, I don't view this as a tool we're gonna use every time we have a public policy question that comes up before the council. You guys have to weigh and filter those things, but from a long-range planning tool, when we look at our special areas or special areas of study, I do think that this is a good opportunity for us to start looking at those areas, go talk to the residents, and really start putting the long-range plans in place so that when projects do come forward, we already have a filter to view those. So I think on the proactive side, we would say, okay, where are those areas in our community that we still just kind of have big question marks about? Let's have those discussions now. Look at amending our future land use map so that we can kind of communicate directionally where we're headed. You know, so I think that's probably where you're going to see more of these discussions moving forward as we amend the 2040 plan and update the future land use map.
And as we got to continue to understand that residents, whether they're in Fishers, Noblesville, or whatever, they don't care about lines, you know, we
Right.
worry about. So that whole area is going to look different in 10 years, right? So we got to kind of weigh out, okay, what are Noblesville, and that's
Yep.
where your conversations with Mayor Jensen and whatever about what are their plans, because that would help us too to understand that. Because once again, if we do this in silos, it doesn't turn out well for residents.
Megan, the other thing too, I think it would be nice to have, as this gets created or developed, design this, if it's a commercial retail concept, that it's like an enclave, like a destination, something that's would also bring in people not just from who live in the proximity there, but maybe other people from around the other side of Fishers or the area that it's a unique concept to that neighborhood, and that people would want to, you know, go there.
Yeah, and I will say
And-
this parcel is within a PUD district, and so if any development were proposed on this parcel, we would review it to make sure it matches the character of the area, and the PUD committee would also be reviewing it for those very same things. So I agree, making sure it has character and fits that area would be a priority. All right, thank you, guys.
We have just a couple minutes before we'll start our council meeting.
Exactly.
I saw that. Like he
Welcome to the March 21st Fisher City Council meeting. First, we want to kick off announcements on March Disability Awareness Month. Who's going to be presenting? Cecilia, you doing that?
We should have a video to show you, but I just want to read what we've been doing. Since 2016, March Disability Awareness Month in Fishers has championed inclusion, collaboration, and acceptance for all people who live in our smart, vibrant, and entrepreneurial community. This effort has had a positive impact on more than just people with disabilities in our city. It has become an achievement for which other communities strive. This year, we will achieve more together as we use the month to include partners from other cities in and around Hamilton County. As our leadership in disability inclusion has expanded beyond Fishers, we know we can achieve more together. So we're getting ready to wrap the month up, and we have 2 events, one at the One Zone, the Caffeinated Conversation tomorrow at the Courtyard by Marriott from 8 to 9 a.m. And then there is a concert celebrating Beethoven's 250th birthday on Sunday, March 27th at 4 p.m. at Legacy Bible Church. And I believe we have a video.
Do you have the video, or would you like us to push? We can go do that later. Okay.
I think, I'm not sure that's not it. The proclamation, yeah, I think we were just going to do the proclamation today. Thank you. Thank you.
I would sing for everybody, but I think you guys would not like that, so. Yeah, I'll spare you.
The month of March has been designated as Disability Awareness Month to celebrate and recognize people with disabilities by the Governor of the State of Indiana.
Whereas disability is a natural part of the human experience.
And in no way diminishes the right of individuals with disabilities to live independently.
Enjoy self-determination, make choices, contribute to society, and experience full
In the economic, political, social, cultural,
and educational mainstream of American society.
And whereas family members, friends, and members of the community
can play a central role in enhancing the lives of people with disabilities,
especially when the family and community are provided with necessary support services.
And public and private employers are aware of the capabilities of people with disabilities
to be engaged in competitive work in inclusive settings.
Properly include providing individuals with disabilities
the opportunities and support
to make informed choices and decisions,
live in homes and communities where such individuals can exercise their full rights and responsibilities as citizens,
pursue meaningful and productive lives,
contribute to their family, community, state, and nation.
Therefore, I, Scott Fadness, Mayor of the City of Fishers, along with the Honorable City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of March as Disability Awareness Month in the City of Fishers. Furthermore, I encourage the citizens of Fishers to seek counsel and input from any person or group with knowledge and expertise in matters concerning disabilities.
Thank you, Ashley. And I just want to let everybody know, last month, the Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability was formally codified into an ordinance, and we're just really excited about the future, and we are really excited about what's to come in collaboration with all our community partners, and I want to thank the council for their unanimous support of this advisory committee that has made a major impact in providing a life without limits for everybody, including people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Cecilia, thank you for all your hard work and dedication. Your efforts have transformed the community and public policy, and it's also reached out to, it's impacted Carmel, and I mean, and surrounding areas, and it helps with the decision-making process. So thank you very much for all your hard work. All right, moving on to no proclamations. We got a presentation from, or a couple presentations from Chief Gebhardt. Sorry, there wasn't a round of applause. There should have been a round of applause as you're walking.
No, the two gentlemen behind me deserve that. Thank you, Council, for allowing me a few moments to recognize two of our officers who have served 20 years of service to the community of Fishers. Can Tracy and Tom please come forward? First, Officer Tracy Marsh has come to us, served us for 20 years after serving for 9 years in another community, so 29 total years, Tracy. He came into our patrol division and served and has served there his entire career. He did spend some time in our hostage negotiations with our SWAT team, but his attention to detail, his continued efforts and dedication to our community shouldn't go unnoticed, so thank you, Tracy. Sergeant Tom Wager, he's come to us again after serving another community for 6 years, so 26 total years of service to multiple communities. Tom began in our patrol division where he served in uniform, and then also became a part of our field training efforts to train new officers that come onto our agency. Tom quickly became involved with Sergeant Jerry Hepp in hiring, backgrounds, and recruitment, where he was transferred a short time later, and he did those duties daily as his sole focus. In 2013, he promoted to sergeant. He now supervises a team of individuals that work on our hiring and recruitment. It's a lot different now than it was then, right, Tom? But thank you for your service, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy and Tom, for all your years of service. Thank you very much. Moving on to Finance Committee report. John?
Thank you, Todd. Well, the Finance Committee met recently, and there's 2 items on the agenda tonight that we recommend for approval. Item 7B, authorizing City Controller to transfer certain funds, and Item 9, ordinance authorizing issuance of City of Fishers, Indiana taxable economic development revenue bonds.
All right, thank you. And then item 6 is our Health Department report, and on our agenda you can log on and click on the update of the Health Department for all the latest there. Moving on to the consent agenda, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Pete, second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. On to item 8, R032122A, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Fishers, Indiana, approving certain matters in connection with the amendment to the declaratory resolution for the consolidated Fishers I-69 Economic Development Area. I will stop reading there.
Thank you. For the record, Lisa Bradford, City Controller. The item before you is another procedural step related to the creation of a new allocation area related to the Highline project. So the item before you is council's approval of the new allocation area and amendment to the economic agreement for the plan. So the Redevelopment Commission and the Plan Commission have previously already approved the designation of this site as an allocation area to provide for the capture of the tax increment financing revenue. This capture of the TIF revenue will allow us to pay the debt service on the associated bond with it. And the Redevelopment Commission will do the final approval after this passes the City Council.
Any questions or comments?
Todd, I do have one. I have to apologize. This item was also approved by the Budget and Finance Committee meeting as well,
Yes.
so my apologies for
That's
missing
all right.
that.
Thank you, John.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Pete to approve. Oh, go ahead.
Somebody made a comment about the risk of this bond, and I don't view it as any risk to the taxpayers. Maybe you can explain that.
Yes, so I think it does have a backup associated with it, and maybe that might be where the confusion comes in, but the analysis that's done for the tax increment financing looks at basically what increment will bring in. So basically, how much value is created, and then the bond is issued for an amount that will cover that debt service payment. So if it's gonna, if the new area will bring in, let's say, an extra $500,000 in revenue, then the annual debt service is sized to bring in $500,000 in revenue. So it's a net zero effect, and then it doesn't get into being paid by its secondary backup source. And basically what this one has also is 125% debt service coverage, which basically means that the increment is greater than the amount of debt service that's being pledged. So there's excess revenue on top of what is actually pledged.
So I think we're very conservative in our forecast, and then also there's a minimum taxpayer agreement, so that if for some reason assessments didn't come in as predicted, there would still be a minimum that they would pay to cover the debt payment.
And even if it did go bankruptcy or something happened.
It's attached to the property as a lien.
The bondholders would lose their money, and if the banks bought the property, they would still owe the property tax per se.
They would still owe the property tax. It becomes a lien on the property.
Wasn't there a super preferred lien on this property as well, of some type?
There'd be a lien because of the minimum taxpayer agreement.
Right, yeah, so it would go with the.
So we're in a position where we'd get our bonds paid.
So it would owe, it virtually is very little or no risk to taxpayers.
I mean, the only, the worst case scenario is you would become the proud owners of the real estate, which, you know, there'd be a disposition there that might be complicated, but between the conservative forecasting and then the minimum taxpayer agreement, you really do have multiple layers of checks and balances on that.
And the additional 25% goes into the TIF funds, right?
Yes.
It goes into the allocation area and then kind of creates that pool if needed.
And Lisa, could you explain quickly how this is a procedural step? Like we're in the phase that we are executing.
Yes, so the redevelopment commission and kind of creates these allocation areas, and so every time there is an amendment to and a creation of this allocation area, you go through these procedural steps to say, this is an area I want to set up that is a new area that did not previously exist. So it goes through the redevelopment commission, and then it goes before the plan commission also to say that this, area agrees to what we want to do in that particular area, like what's going to be built.
I think to your point, Councilwoman Bear, the economic development agreement has already been approved, which sets out we're going to do this, they're going to do that. This is just the ongoing execution of it. So even though someone maybe had a policy difference with the initial economic development agreement, these steps don't really constitute your full support of the project. It's just moving the procedure forward. You can still say no for the principle of it, but the economic development agreement is really that binding document.
Right. So thank you, and I appreciate your explanation of that, Lisa. I've asked that a couple times, and I just appreciate you walking me through that as well.
No problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Pete. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to item 9, 022122. Ordinance authorizing issuance to the City of Fishers, Indiana taxable and economic development revenue bonds.
For the record, Lisa Bradford, City Controller. The item before you is up for a second reading, and we have previously discussed that this is, as we discussed with the last item, really a procedural step related to the economic development agreement for the project at 106th and Kincaid. So as the project agreement was approved by council, it called out in that project agreement the issuance of these bonds, and that's what the document before you is the issuance of the bonds per the project agreement. And so as we discussed last month, this was reviewed by the Economic Development Commission, who had a public hearing on February 21st for it, and then the Redevelopment Commission also had a public hearing related to this on March 7th. So those were where the public hearings occurred for this project.
Maybe questions?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, I just have one comment. I was against this project mainly because people in the area didn't want it. So I voted no before I'm going to vote yes on the procedural. But I do hope the program is a lot of success and it really does well.
My
you.
motion stands. Motion to approve.
Motion by Pete to approve. Do we have a second?
do we have
Second
to-
by Selena?
Is second reading, though?
I think we can do it on second reading, pass on
do
second
this on
reading.
Do we need
Second,
to- do we need to suspend?
No, you don't.
No,
Okay.
don't need to suspend.
Pass on second.
Okay, motion by Pete, second by Selena. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 10, 032122, an amendment to the City of Fishers salary ordinance. This is a first reading.
Good evening. For the record, Ethan Lee, Director of Human Resources. I'm here to present a request to amend the 2022 salary ordinance. Per state statute, the city is required to establish maximum biweekly salaries for each one of our positions. And with that, we'd like to add the position of social worker under the health department. It should be noted that this position is going to be fully grant funded, so will not have any impact on the payroll budget. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I do have a question. Is this grant something we have to apply for annually, or is this, how does this work? And are there stipulations as to why we would not receive a grant? Say, my concern is, because I'm for this, but my concern is if we approve this based on a grant, right? And then all of a sudden, whoops, next year there is no grant, then what do we do with that? Are we firing somebody, or what do we do?
We are.
Okay.
It's a 2-year funding, and it's clear the person we would hire it'd be contingent on the grant.
Okay.
So if the grant goes away, the employment goes away. And I think in this particular area, people are pretty accustomed to that scenario. It isn't quite the equivalent of like when you get a cops safer grant and you hire 8 firefighters, and then all of a sudden the grant money runs out. Most of these folks know they work for the tenure of the grant.
Okay.
But
Chris,
I mean, we ask the same questions.
Yeah.
Chris, is this something that has to go through multiple readings, or it can be approved?
You can suspend the rules if you want to
Okay,
vote it.
I'm
It's a
making
first
motion to
reading, though.
Suspend the rules and approve on first reading.
Any questions before we do that?
Well, I have another question about the matter.
Okay.
May I? Could you share a little bit about the job description of
Yeah.
this? This is the first social worker that the health department will be hiring.
Indeed,
right?
and I'm glad you asked. So this position it would, kind of just to read off the description for you, triage patients needing mental health services and to coordinate care with other agencies, including Fishers Fire Department and Police Department. Would also work with the Public Health Associate program and determining any recommended programmatic changes. May provide services via telehealth in-home and in-clinic setting to diverse patient population. Will assist the director in developing goals and protecting the mental health of residents using evidence-informed public health-focused prevention techniques. May involve facilitation of support groups, provision of educational materials at events, and participation in city initiatives involving multiple agencies. I'd like to also add that this is probably the #1 request through the schools, through community engagement, focus groups, and so on, that this is probably the #1 need looking ahead for our health department and would be the next logical step for where our department is going in that regard.
It's a welcome addition, and I know tonight we're not here to detail out the job description of this position, but I will add, will this person be helpful liaison with our nonprofits that also serve in this space as well?
Yeah, I would say very much so. There's going to be another person who is going to be connected with the community and all the other organizations that might work with us on.
I'm happy to hear that.
Imagine a scenario where we go on a 911 call and someone, let's say they're suicidal, and our police and fire are well equipped to deal with that emergency situation, but when they leave, we want the social worker to be able to follow up, get that person to the help that they need, or if it's someone with dementia, how do we get them over to the right programs? It's just really all that case follow-up that prevents us from having to go back to their lights and sirens for the same issue over and over again. Really trying to be proactive in our ability to prevent some of the worst scenarios from occurring.
Some of those things get very serious. I mean, years ago, I was volunteer chaplain with our police department and fire, and most of the calls, it was back in the pager days, right? And they would page me, and I'd come meet an officer, and we'd go out to a home because I'm telling them basically their spouse has died in a car wreck or something very, very traumatic. And so I can see where this is a position that, because they would have me there to basically stay with them once they felt like I was safe there, to stay with them long after the officers needed to go to another call or something. So while I feel like these are very important issues that most people don't see. You don't see this in the news, or you don't see this in every day. But when you're in somebody's home and their whole world is falling apart, those are critical moments. So yeah. Any other comments or questions? All right. So you motion to suspend the rules.
Correct.
By Pete, second by Selena. All those to suspend the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Now make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Pete.
Second.
Second by Celia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 11, 022122B. Consideration of vacation of the 15 of 30-foot drainage, utility, and public sanitary sewer easement.
Yes, good evening. For the record, Megan Vukasich with the Planning and Zoning Department. So this is for the vacation of a drainage and utility easement for the High Line at Fishers project. This is really a procedural step. The platting has gone through our technical advisory committee. They've already submitted a secondary plat with the new dedicated easements. However, there's an existing easement identified here in green that is existing that needs to be vacated, and that is done through City Council. So this was before you last month for first reading, and then before you tonight for final reading and approval.
All right, any questions?
Again, I'll make a motion to approve.
No questions. Motion by Pete to approve.
Second.
Second by Cecilia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. On to item 12, 101121E, consideration of a rezone.
Yeah, so this item is for a rezone request. This is final reading for this item. So you all did see this, I believe it was maybe October or November of last year. So this is at the southeast corner of 136th Street and Cynthia Ann Road. The current zoning for this parcel it's within the Britton Falls PUD. It's identified as Area 5, which allows for C1 and C2 commercial uses. Those are really neighborhood-focused commercial uses. As we went over in the work session, the Fishers 2040 plan identifies this as a neighborhood service center, so that does align with the existing zoning that's in place today. And the proposed development for this would include 292 multifamily units and approximately 30 buildings. So each building has about 8 units in it. The underlying zoning district is proposed to be M2 multifamily, and here you can see the proposed renderings as well. There are 2 proposed access points, one off of Cynthia Ann and one off 136th Street. All internal roads are proposed to be private. The petitioner is not proposing to stub any of the streets to the adjacent undeveloped parcel, which staff is unsupportive of. Typically, we like to see connectivity to any undeveloped parcel. So before you shows the concept plan and then the proposed architectural renderings for this new PUD district. We did hold a public hearing through Plan Commission for this project. We received a significant amount of remonstration from the surrounding neighbors. So this included residents in the neighborhoods of Hunters Run, Britton Falls, and Barrington Estates. And you can see here on this location map where those are in relation to this subject property. Their concerns included that they would just rather see commercial as it sits today, which we went over in the work session, really aligned with the city-hosted neighborhood meeting. There were also some concerns brought up about traffic and density in the school system. Plan Commission at their March 2nd meeting sent a unanimous unfavorable recommendation to City Council tonight. And again, just want to highlight our city-hosted neighborhood meeting where we did try to obtain some feedback from the residents in that area, and what we found is that a significant amount of them, a majority of those who were surveyed, would rather see commercial only out in this area, so really didn't feel like residential was a good fit. So staff does recommend denial for this item. The reasons for that denial is that we do not feel that it aligns with the Fishers 2040 vision for this area. The proposed use does not fit with the character of the area, so we're really trying to plug in multifamily rental developments in areas that are supported by walkable, amenity-rich environments. and we just don't feel like that this is the best location for this. And there's also been a significant amount of remonstration, and the feedback that staff has received is that residents really would rather prefer to see the zoning as it sits today, and so no changes in our mind are needed at this time, and so we do recommend denial. With that, I will turn it over to the petitioner to give any additional comments on their end.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Steve Harden. I'm a partner in the law firm of Fagery Drinker, and I'm representing tonight Bel Canto, and with me from Bel Canto is Gabriel Gonzalez. Sandy Avery could not be here this evening. We appreciate the staff's comments, and the only comments I have tonight from Bel Canto is that they appreciate the opportunity to be able to meet people as they went along the process, to meet City Council members, the city leadership, the planning department, the neighbors. They understand zoning and planning, that people view zoning planning from their front porch and their back porch, and they understand the feedback that was received. Hopefully this is brought to light that this intersection, not just this corner, but this intersection merits a relook from a comprehensive plan, land use and planning perspective as the city moves forward. And Bel Canto looks forward, if not here at this location, perhaps some other location at some point in time. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm going to make a motion to deny the rezone.
Okay, any comments or questions at this point? All right, Pete makes a motion to deny. Second by Selena.
Just a procedural step, and maybe Chris, is the motion to deny or yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
So it's a
That's
motion to
asking for
reject.
rezone, so I'm just making a motion
Right,
to deny
so
the rezone.
if I want to deny, I'll vote
Yes.
yes.
You'll vote
Okay.
yes.
You got it.
Yes.
Thank you, I just want to be very
Yes.
clear on that
Yeah.
before.
Kind of a
thank
double
you.
negative almost, I get it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so motion by Pete, second by Selena. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. And also, while these can be frustrating sometimes for a petitioner or whatever, it did generate good conversation and opportunity for us to discuss what's going on and plan for the Northeast area of Fishers. Moving on to item 13, 032122A. A request to approve a voluntary annexation of 4 lots known as Abbott Commons subdivision.
And these next two items I'm going to present together, but then they'll be voted on separate because the annexation just relates to the overall development. So I'll go ahead and give an overview of, I believe it's item, is it 15 on the agenda?
And one question
13 and
first.
14?
Do we have, is it public hearing for both item 13 and 14 or just?
Just on 13
okay,
for
all
the
right.
annexation.
So the item number 14 is for a proposed new PUD district called Abbott Commons. So the petitioner is Fager Drinker on behalf of Lennar. The current zoning is R2 residential. The existing land use is that it's vacant, it's agricultural land today. And then the comprehensive plan does identify this area as suburban residential. So those would be single-family homes at a density of 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre. So the area that we're looking at here is northeast of Prairie Baptist and 136th Street. So that's identified here just south of the I-69 interstate. This gives you an overview of the concept plan. So there are 4 distinct areas within this concept plan. You have Area A, which is homes that will front 136th Street. These are proposed to be alley-loaded homes, and so they will have no garage door facing 136th Street, which allows for higher architecture for these homes in the area. So you can see kind of a rendering. This is an example of what one of those homes could look like. And that area is the light tan here, just north of the pond. Area B is the home sites just directly north of that, so sitting behind this, and would abut the I-69 interstate. So here gives you an example of what that architectural rendering would look like. Those are proposed to have front-loaded garages, but again, they're set back a little bit further in the development, so that way you get the higher architecture up close to 136th Street. The other areas would be Area C, which is here. These would also propose to be single-family homes at a bit higher density, and then this development also includes townhomes. So these are for-sale townhomes that are included here in what's being called Area D. So I'll let the petitioner go into a little bit more details on each one of those products, but that gives you an overview of the development. This is a unique site in that there is an easement that runs diagonal through the development. So you can see here, they really tried to work with the site constraints of this parcel to activate them through walking trails. And so what they've done is they put a trail right here through the easement of the development. And then they've also, there's a walking trail that will run the entire perimeter of this, really along the interstate. So it uses an unusable or undesirable area within this parcel and activates it through walking trails. And so this really highlights the green is kind of that perimeter path, and then the red identifies just the sidewalks that would be required with the development. So this is a proposed PUD development, and so I just wanted to highlight for you all, within any PUD district, there are going to be reductions or deviations from the UDO, and then there's also going to be areas where we're getting higher or where it's exceeding the UDO. And so this gives you a general overview of those standards. So a lot of the reductions are in the density, so that would be lot size, frontage, setbacks, and impervious surface. And then where this development is exceeding the UDO, so they're proposing the larger building floor area, but the exciting features, I would say, of this development are the amount of open space and parkland and walking trails. They've also dedicated or made the commitment to have all of their landscaping be native species. There's a mix of for sale housing types, so that's something unique that we don't see in a lot of developments. And then the architecture, just with any PUD development, it's reviewed through the PUD committee. So the architecture in most cases of PUDs are higher than what we would typically see. So I just wanted to lay this out for you all to show kind of the pros and cons of what we're getting through this development. So staff does recommend that you hold first reading and provide any feedback on this development tonight. It will go to Plan Commission next month for the public hearing and then be back before you in April for final reading if all goes as planned. With that, I will turn it over to the petitioner to give an overview of their presentation.
Thank you, Megan. Good evening again, Mr. President, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Steve Harden. I'm a partner of the law firm of Faegre Drinker and a resident here in the City of Fishers, and I'm standing up here with Corby Thompson from Boomerang Development. Corby and his partner, Chris Worth, are from the development team, and the builder is Lennar Homes with Craig Jensen and Keith Lasher also here this evening. This is a great example, at least to be here at first reading, of really good collaboration between the development community and the city. The property that we're talking about is zoned already R2 residential, as you can see in the red outline. It's up against the highway, bordered on the north by the interstate, on the south by 136th Street. And then the city's future land use map that the city just adopted most recently last summer shows this property between Prairie Baptist and the county line, all as residential, so suburban residential, which supports a mix of residential types of development up to 4 units per acre, which this development fits right into it. I'm going to ask Corby now to give you a background on kind of the history of the project, how we got from where we started to where we are now, and then he'll also hit a few other highlights.
Thanks, Steve. For the record, Corby Thompson, Boomerang Development, 11911 Lakeside Drive in Fishers. This process started over a year ago. And I've been working with staff. We kicked it off, actually meeting with Megan Baumgartner. On this side of the podium, we view these as economic development. I know over there sometimes you don't, but we do. And so we started with Megan, and actually the main driving goal was the Vision 2040 plan to guide us in what we were to do with this project. We also, of course, looked at the comprehensive plan, BNR2, and then during this year process, the housing study came out. And a lot of the housing study had to deal with affordability and so forth. And so that drove us a little bit, and we actually tried to get to some affordable product, meaning $275,000 in Fishers. We worked with staff in that regard. As you know, we ran into material cost, land development cost, land cost, labor cost, and it was getting more and more difficult to even contemplate getting to what we call affordable in the area of Fishers. And then we ran into architectural reviews, which the city is entitled to what they want. and they wanted a much higher standard than what the builder could provide in order to make it affordable. And we're fine with that. I mean, the city gets to make the rules. And so we ended up with a project that's, I would no longer call affordable. In fact, I was before this body 11 years ago doing the Silverton project, which is directly south of this project, this property. And we were essentially targeting the same buyer that we targeted then on this site with lots that are 30 to 40% smaller. But that's the nature of our market today, and the cost and the world we live in. So it's the same target buyer 11 years later, a much smaller lot. Unfortunately, what we're finding now is that people generally don't want the larger lots, and that's just the nature of the buyer. As we got into this project, what you're seeing now is our 9th iteration of the land plan. It does take a lot of time. We worked with Megan Baumgartner, Megan Bukasic, Brianna, and Ross throughout the whole process. We had many meetings, many reviews. There were a lot of homes that were kicked out, deemed unworthy. There were a lot of homes that we modified, and there were a lot of homes that were okay from the start. I actually chose Lennar to be the builder in this project. Lennar is a publicly traded company based in Miami, traded on the New York Stock Exchange. They have a lot of financial muscle, a lot of marketing skills in that as well. But what I really liked about them and like about them is they have a local design team for each market, and so they're able to design to what the standards we want and what's applicable to Midwestern values, if you will, what we're looking for in product. So I really like working with Lennar. It is economic development. The first thing that's going to happen on this project is they're going to invest $35 million into the land itself and the land development costs. Then throughout the project, there'll be another $120 million in home construction costs. So net assessed value well over $150 million when the project is finished. And innumerable jobs. You've heard these economic development pitches, and that's what this is at the moment. I don't know, on the way over here, a lot of people are outside walking, riding bikes, more so than I really can recall seeing. And I don't know if that's COVID or what's happened. People need to understand now we have to be more healthy. People want to get outside, so that drove us on these trails. There's 6.7 miles or so of these things. I was sitting next to Chris just now, and he added 800 feet just now. He said, we need another one over here. So we want to get people to get outside. Maybe a culture of health is what we can drive on these projects going forward in the future. Hopefully we can get this trail over southwest of here to that Greenbelt Trail that the city has over there, and much more connectivity into other areas. And hopefully we get some commercial down at the corner, so we can, these people can walk down there and shop as well. That would be fantastic. Certainly this is multi-generational. There are 5 of the floor plans have first floor master suites. And so we're hopeful that people can live here with the 4 different product types, all different price points through all different ranges of their lives. Lennar is, they use all LED lighting in their homes. I talked to them about certain things. Do you have plugs for electric vehicles? Well, we can do that. All of our breaker boxes are in the garages, so very easy to add later on. A lot of times at this price point, that buyer doesn't have an EV at this point, but that day is probably coming, so these homes are highly adaptable for that. That's pretty much what I wanted to say. I look forward to your feedback and your questions and your input. Help us make this project a better project, and Steve may have some more to offer.
Corby, I just would ask, just indulgence, could you maybe talk a little bit about, I know you guys spent a lot of time thinking about the 136th Street streetscape, of what that looks like, and maybe just talk a little bit about what you did and what the design intent was.
We did. Megan mentioned it. Of course, you can see the ponds along 136th Street, and all the homes at front 136th Street will have garage doors in the rear. That's one of the sticking points in the architectural guidelines. Garage doors take a big part of the frontage. So if we can hide them, the front facade is much nicer, much more attractive. The homes across the street in Silverton, also in Hunter's Run, their rears face 136th Street. That was then, 11 years ago. This is today. We're looking for a little higher standard along here, so hopefully you can appreciate that. A question I have for Megan on the density standards. the reductions from the UDO, that's from the R2, correct? R5, okay. All right, thank you. That's a good point. Okay. And yes, this is proposed as a PUD. I had a nice discussion with Brad about the history of PUDs, and I think I gave some information to the staff as well, and maybe a future presentation for the council, how we get to PUDs. But anyway, here we are, so. Anything else? Good. Okay. Happy to take questions and comments and input.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and open it up for public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on?
Todd, why don't you do comments for the first reading on
comments
the
first.
rezone, and then we'll get through that. And
Okay,
then if you get
yep.
first reading.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council?
I have a question here. Chris, where do we stand on getting houses so that way only a percentage of them can be bought by investors? I have a concern about this neighborhood with investors buying up a lot of these houses.
So it's still an ongoing process. We've asked for some feedback on that. We don't have a concrete answer on it today.
Do you always reserve the right to have that conversation in the covenants discussion of the HOA? During this time, that would be appropriate conversation to have with the builders, certainly. But in terms of our ability to, let's say, pass an ordinance to restrict, that's a legal question that we're still having researched.
Okay, so I guess my question to the builder would be, can we get a restriction on the number of these properties that can be bought by investors?
I would say that to the extent we're legally allowed to put that by state statute in the HOA documents, we would definitely do that.
Okay. Thank you.
So you're saying there's a legal issue with that? Because I know Covington Estates has something in their covenants. You can't rent their houses.
You know, through the Indiana Builder Association, the Builder Association of Greater Indianapolis, we're researching this constantly, and that's my current understanding, so I'm going to preface that comment with state statute allows, because we're not totally certain on that. We don't want to get sued.
Yeah. Did I hear these would start at 275?
No, that was the attempt. We tried to get there.
Gotcha.
We tried to get there. We think that the townhomes will be at 325. The single families will range in price from 350 to the ones that face with the rear garages, they'll be up to 475 on these smaller lots. So.
Yes. Jason's not here. Prairie Baptist, I assume on the thoroughfare plan that Prairie Baptist went down the section line, but you're showing it all on your property, so we're moving Prairie Baptist to the east off the section line, is that what we're doing?
My understanding is when the church went in, that was a requirement of them to provide that right-of-way, and they have done that. When
The whole right-of-way, not just the half?
That's, yes. And then, of course, Prairie Baptist, it now ends where we ended.
So all the Prairie Baptist then will go on the property, not on the neighbor to the west?
That's correct.
Okay. Also, I noticed on your plot plan, Cory, you got a curb cut into the church. Are you willing to pay for that curb cut for the church to have?
Yes, I've met with the church, and we were trying to help them out quite a bit, actually, so.
So are you making a commitment that you will pay for the curb cut into the church?
Legal counsel, can I make a comment? I don't think I can in that language. We will work with the church to get that in there, and we have to go to a public hearing in April, back to the city council. By then, I'll have a firm answer for you how we have worked it out with the church.
So tonight, you're not committing to paying for that curb cut for the church?
Can I legally commit to do that, Chris?
You're building Prairie Baptist Road, yes.
Get another bite at the apple, Brad, when he comes back, so.
I think Corby is telling you it's his intent to do that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so whether or not we put that into a commitment at the Plan Commission, we can work through that, and I'd let Corby's counsel decide how to do that.
Full involvement for lawyers right now. 100% agreed. I think Corby's saying he plans to do it, wants to work on it. Just give us a moment to be able to make sure how that looks and documents it by the time we come back to Plan Commission.
I mean, it's shown on there.
Sure.
I don't want people to misinterpret and then later say, well, you showed it, and now I got to pay for it?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, and my hesitancy, Brad, is that I've been doing this a long time, since Mike Colby was on the Plan Commission, and we had rules where we just couldn't make commitments, requests from you. That's my understanding, and that's why legal counsel, I look to them. But yes, I've already talked to the church about it, so short of making a commitment that I don't know I can make.
Plus the city
I
has to
am.
approve it, there's, so there's lots of things we have to go through.
Yeah, it's gotta be far enough north of 136, so I understand all these engineering questions, it's shown on here, I just wanna make sure there's no misunderstanding with the church in the road that's being built, we pay for it, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, actually, one other thing I can tell you, the church has a large dry detention area. They have a lot of unusable land on this site. I told them if we can over detain on ours, we will do that. Provide some fill over on their side, actually fill it, and they can use more of their site. Want to work with them beyond? That's what I understand. Yeah. So we're working with the church.
And then, of course, my usual comment, it's zoned R2, it doesn't even meet R5, why does Fishers have a zoning ordinance if we're not gonna enforce our zoning ordinance? And the side setback is 7, and we know in Brick Falls, it doesn't work, so I'm tired of talking about it.
Brad, thank you. Anybody else?
Were you able to contact all the surrounding neighbors to get some feedback on the development itself?
Yes.
The plan?
Yes. I met with the owners to the west along Prairie Baptist Road, offered to put up a fence along that entire property line to protect their parcel. I met with the gentleman who lives in the center around the ponds. He's a fisherman. He and his wife are getting ready to remodel. They're going to stay put. And then I did meet with the church. I have not met with the woman who owns the property next to the proposed pool, but I will contact her.
Okay, and then I had a couple questions. I'd like to see what the rear elevations were gonna be for the homes with the alleyways. Enhance architectural features from the back. I just think even transoms on the windows. I noticed that the townhouses have transom windows on the garages, but the other homes do not, and the alleyway ones, I don't know what those look like. But I thought if there's a way to just enhance a little bit more architecturally, or I like the transom on the garages, and I just like to see what the rear elevation is going to look like for those houses in the alleyway. I want it to look, I don't want it to look cheap. I wouldn't want it to look cheap, but enhanced.
Okay, understand.
Any other questions, comments at this time? All right, I'll go ahead and open it up for.
So Todd, will you ask for a motion for the first reading first?
I'll give it a first reading.
Okay. So we have a motion by Pete for the first reading, and then we'll flip to item 13, which is the annexation, which you can open up the public hearing
Okay.
for.
So, go ahead. All right, so now we're going to open up for public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item can step forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Mike Colby. I live at 7105 Cold Lake Drive. I'm probably going to be out of order. I know this is the public hearing for the annexation, but I want to comment about the issue about restricting homes that can be leased or rented to companies that come in. We have a covenant in our community that we restrict homes to no more than 3%. And then we also have a condition in our covenants that say you only rent not less than 12 months, no more than 12 months. So every year they have to renew that. We also get a very extensive background check, credit, criminal, civil. We have the authority to impose a deposit. We set the deposit at $5,000. We also, we're talking about going in and modifying the covenants, which is certainly a possibility. It requires those people living there now to approve it by a majority, but we're going to reduce the percentage to 1%. And see, in my community, 298 homes, 3% is nine homes. whereas without a 1%, it'll be 3 homes. So just give the builder an idea of what they can do in the covenants. I know you guys can't do it up there. Now, we might get sued, and I'm sure Mr. Harden will do pro bono work for us. And anyway.
You guys are making a lot of commitments tonight, Steve.
I know I'm out of order, but and annexation, wonderful.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else wishing to speak, state your name and address, come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. Seeing no one coming forward, I'll close the public hearing. We have a
First reading.
First reading, all right. Right, all right. Any other unfinished or new business?
Nope.
No? Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the community comments part of the agenda. Anyone wishing to speak, step forward, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. And Mike is back.
Hi, guys. Here again. Hey, listen, I got good news. I'm going to talk about private roads tonight. Now, before I get a collective sigh and eyes rolled.
Should we just add this to the agenda each month? Yeah.
That'd be fine. I got something from Jordan Alexander, who is the first ray of sunshine I've had. They're looking at the issue of maintenance and private roads, and believe it or not, Fisher's Crossing is in the forefront of their conversation. And I'm informed that they're going to be doing some title work on the parcels and confirming legal ownership and description of the parcels. So that's a big step. And I really want to thank Chris, his office, I think, has carried the load on this. The mayor, I don't know, he probably doesn't do much. But anyway.
Your time's up.
Huh?
Your time's up.
My time's up.
So the first road that's done, we should do Colby Way or something, right? So just the Colby initiative.
True update on that, and Jordan's reached out to Mike, but we're kind of running parallel tracks here. We're on Fisher's Point, but we're also working on Parkside Drive and over on State Road 37, both sides of the road, Britton Park Drive. They've reached like a critical point, and in fact, I sent DPW out there to deal with a couple potholes that literally you could lose a Honda in. And we've already met with the property management. We plan to have a community meeting to talk about moving those roads forward too, because we're just at a point where these roads are literally in disrepair, and so we're going to be moving all of those forward at roughly the same time period.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else wishing to speak, step forward, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Josh User, and I reside at 12863 Shakespeare Way. Last month, I spoke to the February City Council meeting where I raised some concerns about some potential zoning violations occurring in the Pulte's Hunter's Run, which amounted to a lack of a temporary use permit that's required under the Fisher's UDO. In recent years, there's been several other instances of property owners that were in violation of various use standards under the UDO. One such case that went before the Board of Zoning Appeals was Mr. Sadowski, who was maintaining chickens on his residential property. After a complaint was made to the Planning and Zoning Department, Mr. Sadowski was issued a violation and was faced with a choice. He had to either correct the use violation by removing his chickens from the property, or he had to seek a use variance. Mr. Sadowski chose to seek a variance and was required to apply to the city, pay a filing fee, provide public notice to neighboring properties, prepare a presentation, seek letters of support from neighbors, and finally present his case to the board. In the end, Mr. Sadowski prevailed and was able to keep and successfully retained a variance. In this situation, time was not the only cost for Mr. Sadowski, but he also had a significant financial investment through application and mailing fees. For the record, the current use variance application fee is $650, which is a significant cost to many. Indiana Code sets out conditions for appeals of requirements, orders, decisions, and determinations made by zoning officials that shall be heard by the board. One of the duties of the Board of Zoning Appeals is to review the decisions made by an administrative official as a quasi-judicial body. Indiana Code also outlines the requirements that members serving on the board must be impartial to avoid any conflict of interest which preserve fairness for those appearing before the board. Regarding the concerns that I raised previously, the Planning Department failed to acknowledge that the property was in violation and continues to make claims that the property was in compliance at the time of construction. However, the city has failed to provide any substantiating evidence of these permits. So I submitted an appeal to be heard by the BZA. A few days later, I received a letter from outside counsel representing the Board of Zoning Appeals, who also represents the zoning department, that my application would not be processed on a presumption that it was not a decision. It's quite clear that there's discretion that's being exercised in regards to this situation, and in my opinion, this denial is not in the spirit of the local and state laws that are there to protect bad zoning decisions made by administrative officials. It's a direct hindrance of due process. It is also a classic example of the fox guarding the henhouse. Is there a conflict of interest if the attorney that's hired by the planning department is also the one preventing appeals to be heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals? In conclusion, I'm at a loss to understand why citizens like Mr. Sadowski must jump through all these hoops and make a substantial time and monetary investment to be able to use their property. Yet the city comes to the rescue of large developers like Pulte and uses taxpayer money to defend them. Why does Pulte get special treatment? How much more money is going to be spent to defend developers? This is a clear double standard. It's unequitable enforcement of the law. It's unjust, and it should be stopped immediately. Thank you for your consideration.
Anyone else wishing to speak, step forward, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, thank you. Abraham Wondergem, 16331 Loire Valley Drive. Here last month, 3 residents appeared here expressing issues with developers. Developers and zoning are rapidly becoming issues of great concern. Promises were made to examine and revise practices of enforcement of PUDs. Obviously, a solution cannot be made in 1 month's time, but a fair solution for residents must come about. In 10 days, Britton Falls is scheduled to turn over to its residents. We are still in the same position as before. Financials are still not audited for accuracy. A loan, which indisputably violates our PUD, is still being charged. $259,000 evidently has been collected, with a balance of $141,000 still owed. Our Pulte-appointed attorney and transition committee have provided us with no information on these issues or provided residents with a copy of a proposed transfer settlement. Facilities are breaking down, repairs are mounting, and violations of the PUD concerning common maintenance areas still exist. There's been no enforcement of PUD standards by Fishers. Our residents will start beginning to pay the price in 10 days. There's a rising current in Fishers that kind of dovetails into this. Residents are becoming concerned about the decisions that are changing the fabric and character of their city. They view these decisions with skepticism as hurting the residents. Congested residential areas, traffic accidents, overcrowded schools that can't keep up, and infrastructure inadequate to handle the volume. What is happening is not why they chose to live here. The city is being transformed. In their viewpoint, a lot of people I've talked to, it's becoming less attractive. Not more attractive, less attractive. In closing, I want to read a short comment a resident wrote from an article published in the Hamilton County Reporter. Her response was dated March 3rd. Her name was Veronica. Now, even though this applies to the defeated Bel Canto project that was defeated this evening, there's a lot that applies to any development that you're going to consider in the future. Why so many apartments? Fishers is becoming a zoo. It's congested, many car crashes because people are on top of one another. Fishers has lost its charm. Why do you continue to build apartment buildings? That's where problems occur. Too many people, and we homeowners don't want it. Please stop. Let's keep Fishers beautiful. We are starting to look like any other big city, and with that, big city problems come. I work with a lot of young families out there with the Station 97 Fire Project as far as keeping them informed at community meetings and talking to them about the progress of the meeting. You know, counselors, I'm hearing some of these things. They're concerned. This is not what they bought to raise their families and children in. This rapid growth, helter-skelter, it's not good. When my son, Michael, when he talks to me seriously, I know there's a problem. I mean, he wouldn't say boo if he had a mouthful. So here's your challenge for 2022. Prove to the residents that you, not the developers, run the city, control the PUDs, and end the Etch-a-Sketch zoning perks enjoyed by the developers. Each of you, I think, this evening has a choice to make. You can choose to be a representative for your citizens you represent rather than for business, or you can choose to be, quote, the zookeepers. I think you have your work cut out for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak, step forward and state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, I'm going to close the community comment. Motion to adjourn.
These are comments from Britton Falls. As Abe knows, we have nothing else to do but sit around and complain. So, and I'm the one that gets it all. But the one that I keep getting the most complaints about is the flashing. You cannot get from Britton Falls to Kroger without going through flashers. Every road, Oleo to 120, is flashers. And that's probably why they want a grocery store not in the flashers area. But I keep getting this all the time, and I forward some of them, and some of them I try to respond. When I was Mayor of Greenfield, the city paid for the flashers and then turned the software over to each principal and let that principal control the flashers. These are school flashers, not city flashers. And I don't know why the city can't turn the software over to the principals and let them control the flashers. We have holidays where there's no school, but 126, the flashers are flashing. And I'm getting a little tired of people coming to me. So tonight I'm expressing Britton Falls residents' concerns over the flashers, and it's been going on for a couple of years. And I would like the city to consider doing what I did, turn the software over to the principals and let them control it. Number two, I know we passed a few years ago some ordinances on bicycles, bicycle paths. The area in Britton Falls is 2 county roads, 126 and 136, and you cannot get down them without getting on the edge for a concrete truck or a lumber truck to do it. But the bicyclists, the walkers, and the runners, because we passed that ordinance, think they own the road. And the drivers are the ones that are supposed to. We're dealing with people of an average age of 75 years old out there, and I'm getting a little concerned because my wife makes sure I don't kill somebody. But people out there are wearing dark clothing before sunup, after sundown. Why they won't wear orange or yellow or pink or something, I don't understand. Bicycles, walkers, and runners. And why somebody hasn't been killed yet, I don't know. But I'm sitting here telling you, statistically, it's going to happen. I don't know. I don't like government. I want less government. But this is a situation, maybe we need an ordinance. If you're going to be on a public road, not in your car, you better have yellow, pink, or something on to protect yourself, because this is getting out of hand out there in the Britton Falls area. Thank you very much.
All right, motion to adjourn by Pete. Do I have a second? Second, all right. Adjourn. Thank you all. Have a good night.